Well, hello. We are doing the magazine cover reviews today, or at least I am anyway, where I'm going to be looking at your magazines and giving comments about how it looks and what I think, whether it hit the mark, didn't hit the mark, what improvements could be made, etc. That's what a review for this class is. We're doing it differently this time because I think it'll really benefit everybody by seeing what everybody did and hearing comments about other people's stuff as well. So when you hear the comments and the reviews on these various covers, think about what you would do or how you might do something in the future. So definitely think about your own work and how you feel about something and see if you can take inspiration from other people's work. And I have to tell you, I was quite impressed. All these magazine covers are really darn good. So I was quite pleased, and I hope you were pleased with the work you did because you deserve to be. So we're just going to go through them one by one. They're in no particular order. I've opened them up in Photoshop, and we're just going to go through them one by one, hopefully not spending too much time on any one in particular. So it's kind of an overview. If you want more details, you can always, you can always get in touch with me, and we'll see if we can figure out a time to connect or whatever. So let's just go for it. All right, so the first one in my list here is money 101 ways to rebuild to not to rebuild to build wealth, and command H, I just hid those lines, those template lines there. And so the goal was to use a main focal point image and to have a headline, a serious title for the magazine. And you could use layer styles and you could use blend modes in this thing if you wanted to, obviously. The requirements, it also included having a barcode on the cover. And you have to, there are lots of different considerations. Color, for example, and in this case, I'll certainly say using the gradient is very attractive on this, and you used a nice green. I love the green. I think it's beautiful. I love the fact that you use this gradient. I'm not sure if it came with the picture or not, so let's look in the layers and see. Nope, you definitely added that, and you did a great job with the stack of money. I'm not sure if you masked it or how you got that exactly, but it's definitely a very clean cut here, and I'm not seeing any pixels, which is kind of wonderful. The only thing that I might have done differently is I might have chosen a green that was more from the actual dollar bills or the $100 bills in this case. So otherwise, I still really like that you used a gradient. It's very simple, and your text here, because you had to have three teasers, also looks good. The fact that you use two different colors each one is an interesting design choice. And I like it. I don't personally think people need to have the page numbers on the covers, but I could see where they could be useful, and some magazines do that. So, and you also added the date, June 2021. So, and using the layer styles that you used really helped your text stand out. So that was a very smart idea. So overall, nicely done. I do like the white, by the way, around the word money because it really helps it to stand out, but it's not so strong that it's distracting or anything. So very cool. All right, next we have this one. And this is a really nice design, and it definitely reminds me of like a home and garden kind of magazine. But you did something interesting and unique, which was adding a cutout of this guy at the bottom to show him as a very featured and important person that was going to be something we could learn about if we opened up this magazine. England's Monty Don crosses the pond. So finding beauty and imperfection, mulching for success, fernery, rockery, and stumpery. Oh my. So it's cute. And you did a really nice job in how you arranged these things. And having this guy at the bottom, I think, actually works really well. The barcode I found a little odd with that $4 thing and that giant white space around it. But again, you also used you used really nice fonts. I'm a little I don't know. I'm a little on the fence about this one, the finding beauty and imperfection, partly because it has sort of this, it's built into the text, right? It's got a wobble in it, deliberately obvious free for whoever created that. What font is this? Um, it. Oh, I see. It's Charcuterie Serif, bold 45. It's a really attractive font. I just noticed that little those little bumpy edges. But I really like how you used a variety of colors and yet they still all go together. You've got the word beauty is relating to the sort of, pinkish flowers to the right of it. And another thing that I really like about this cover is how you use that box on top and put 10 things to do this summer for your autumn harvest. And I'm sure if I was to turn on the template lines that it would fit nicely in there. And actually, I could bring this up to the top and look at it and see where they fall. And it's still not at the top, so look at that. It's great to see all these layers and how you handled everything. Yeah, see, it fits perfectly in there, so well done. You could conceivably have moved the guy up from the bottom so he'd fit even better into that little area, but I still think it's just fine. Either way, it's one of the most important things about designing something, especially for what's probably an editorial use, which is typically what these magazines are, is that it be believable. So I believe that this is believable. Most of the covers that I've seen today are. So that's just something to really think about as you're designing going forward. All right, so I'm going to close this one out. We're going to open another one. I'm not going to save it. And here we go, behind the scenes. I love the idea of this. I love behind the scenes stuff always. It particularly interests me, so I'm sure there's a ton of other people that it would interest as well. And it's actually a really interesting image that you used, actually framing it. So looking through the camera lens and whatever this I don't know, it could be an iPhone, it could be an iPad, it could be a lot of different things where we're seeing the image of the woman through a viewfinder of sorts. The only thing that I found that I wasn't as especially delighted about with this image was her expression. I don't mind that she's not looking at the camera. Clearly, she's in the middle of a photo shoot, but I wish she had a little bit more vitality in her expression. I would find it more inviting in general. And also, I'm going to guess that taking the behind the scenes word and putting it slightly behind her head, it's not just a choice that a lot of magazine covers make, but because it says behind the scenes, I think there's sort of a double meaning there, and I thought that was pretty cool. So the ultimate guide for styling shoots, it's a very delicate color that you chose for that, and I think it goes perfectly with the rest of this image here. You made some really nice, very delicate color choices, so good job. And also the way that the whole thing flows, sort of the eye travel, I first look at her, then personally I sort of move to the right and I see her view in there and I kind of go around and then I want to read all these articles that are going to be in there that I could read. So very nicely done. It looks really good. I like the subtlety of it, and again, believable. So good job. All right, so here is another one. Harajuku Daily. And Harajuku stuff is so cool, and it's really interesting to see a magazine like this that would be, I would love to read a Harajuku Daily newspaper or magazine or tabloid or whatever it is that this is. And there's a lot of interesting ideas that you have here. So the Harajuku Daily, I have to tell you, a lot of people don't know that word or even what the Harajuku is and what it represents. And unfortunately, it's not quite as readable as it could be, partly because it feels like it's squashed. And I'm going to guess that you do have enough room. So out here we are. I'm going to bring that layer up to the top so we can see where it sits. And you've got plenty of room. So I don't actually think that you need to do it this way. I'm not going to change the size, but I am going to transform it so that actually I'm not going to transform the type, I'm going to transform the layer essentially. So I think holding down the shift will not constrain the proportions, so that would be nice. For me personally, I think it would be more readable if it wasn't quite as squashed from the top bottom. I'm not sure how you did that because it doesn't show me that in the layers, but I think it's more readable this way. Um, but still, I think it's a great idea for a cover. And I love the delicate colors that you used. You went all the way from, blues all the way to the pinks. So the cools all the way to the warms. And these little flowers on there and how the two different colors that you used for these flowers, which I'm guessing are hand drawn. Actually, I could find that out probably just by clicking on this, if I can get there. Oops. Sometimes things get a little harder than you want them to be. So I'm clicking on that. Okay, I see. So you put the picture on there and then you put the flowers on that same layer. Good. Well, the picture is really cool. One thing you might consider when designing, and this isn't for editorial, but this picture, the way that it's set so that she's actually, when you think about eye travel and how people are responding to where things are placed and how they move around, she's actually looking outside of the magazine. So at the point that we get to her face, her eyes leading us outside the magazine lead us outside the magazine. But you really want people to travel in a circle as they watch, as they look at things. And essentially your design is going to take them on the journey that you want them to take. So that's a very important thing to consider about how you lay things out. Also, as far as this type is concerned, the fact that it's overlapping doesn't bother me so much, except that I believe that your text could have been laid out better. For example, the not so happy origins behind. I think that origins behind could have been, oops, so that it says the fonts are missing. So I guess, am I going to replace them? I'm going to try just for the sake of trying to show you guys this idea. I didn't really want to do that. It could be that's trying to replace them. But basically, origins and behind, there's no reason why they couldn't be on the same line, and it doesn't need to be centered. I think that's part of the deal. So I am going to highlight this text, and I'm going to give it a ragged right or a flush left look. So you would have to obviously make that work better. But I think it might actually look better. At least for that particular text, I didn't really like seeing it overlapping here because it was so barely, it didn't look like you really intended to do that. And also your drop shadow is probably a little bit intense for this particular thing. I think it's great that you added the credit to the photographer on a magazine, an editorial magazine, unless it's somebody like super famous like um, Annie Leibovitz or some other like super household name kind of a person, you wouldn't do that. But I think I did suggest that if you did use it and you wanted to, that you could. So absolutely, I probably would have made it smaller and I probably would have put it right on the photograph. But one of the other little I know I'm keep going on about this, but there's so many interesting things here. One of the things that you did that I think is particularly cool is to use this sort of splatter effect on the entire image, which sort of added an artistic feel, which frankly is what Harajuku is all about. It's all about like living art, people turning themselves into living art in the fashion that they're wearing and how they're wearing it. So very, very interesting. So I hope you take these comments and just think about, really how things look and everybody about eye travel and the journey that you want your viewer to take, which is super duper important. And we'll close that one out. And next, all right, so here is Travel Magazine, and we are focusing on New Orleans. So Travel Magazine, and I'm getting from this bar on the top, which always is a good way to sort of highlight something and make it stand out. Explore, discover, experience. So that's my belief about Travel Magazine. And then this month's focus is on New Orleans. So that's what you've told me. And now you're telling me three different things that are very specific to traveling in New Orleans: the top 10 hotels, the jazz culture, and the French Quarter. And you spelled it wrong, so make sure you double check yourself on spelling. So quarter, Quarter, by night. You don't need a period either. So be very aware of that. The other thing, one of the things that you told me as the viewer is that this is a rainy night, and so I think about a rainy night in New Orleans, and I think about is that common? So it's beautiful because the reflections are gorgeous and the colors are delicious. Probably needs a tad more contrast here in the center because it still ends up being a focal point for this image. But you also use this very interesting layer style, obviously, for your style. It's not a drop shadow; it's like an outer glow, and I like it. The color is very oddly subdued for the topic, but it still works, and it definitely brings highlighting to the idea that this is a specific city that we're talking about. So the jazz culture, 10 hotels. You know what? You did actually overlap all these things, and I think that's a good thing because you were consistent about it. So if you're going to do something like this, you do want to be consistent with having these words over the top. You handled each of these with the same, I wouldn't say the same, but a similar sort of outer glow on this. And the fact that it's not entirely opaque is one of the things that helps it to work. So you've given me two images here that have a tilt. Actually, I guess they all have a tilt, but some are more than others. And also, the two on the left are almost in line with each other, and I think that you might want to have them slightly more offline. I'm going to go ahead and click on this one and this, and come on, move over. There we go. And just moving it over slightly. So I'm going to guess that you were trying to hide those people, and that's fine. But I think if you did something where you had them a little more off kilter, it'd probably be a little more interesting And then of course this little bottom area seems a little empty, and that would be where you would want to put your barcode because then it kind of completes the design elements and the requirements for your magazine. But it's got a lot of good stuff about it. I mentioned them all. You might want to play it back and read them again. And you're not going to redo these, obviously. Just take these ideas and keep a mental note. So next time you design something, that you are, using the ideas or at least be having the awareness of them, so that when you design something, you can say, oh yeah, how does that look? Oh yeah, what about that thing? Yeah, does that work? Is there enough contrast? What about that layer style? What about the general balance and the rhythm of the elements in my design? Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next one. And the Radical Women in Music issue, Wonder Magazine, August 2021. Yeah, this is really clean and really believable. I like it a lot, and I love this simple color palette and how you use this box actually. You didn't have to make one single box. Well, you did make a box, but you also let it fit the words, and I like that. And I do see the template here so that you can make sure that everything fits in beautifully. Good job with that. You use that thing that a lot of magazines do, where you put the artist in front of the masthead, which actually in this case works because you can go too far and you can cover too much, so somebody doesn't know about it. It's easy for Vogue or Esquire or Rolling Stone to do that because they're such recognized magazines. Everybody's heard of them, so they fill in the blanks. But with a magazine that we haven't heard of, it may not always be the case, but you handle this really well. And it's a really cool picture, and the fact that you used a clean white background even though she's wearing a white shirt totally works. It might not work quite as well in this area of her shirt. Let's see. It's going to turn that on and off. Yeah. So what you might do if you have white on white is make sure that all your details show that you have the outline filled in. And I would think that would be one of those things in this particular image you'd want to do. As you can see, it sort of fades out. And it's probably because it's a cutout. I don't know if you cut it out. I don't know if you masked it out because there's no mask on here. So it's hard for me to say. But that is something that you could fix either by selecting it and going into Camera Raw, which you'll learn a lot more about this coming week, where you could actually bring in details, even if it's on a specific area, which you would choose by using a selection tool. All right. So anyway, it's clean, it's white, it's bright, and it totally works. It's got a really nice way of movement in the eye travel, and you're taking me on the journey, and it's a good one. Good job. All right. So here we go with Green Life magazine. Very cool. So I'm gonna, your template looks great. You got everything in there. And Green Life magazine. So green, and then you used green, which is really nice. It's kind of a neon-y green for this, I think, and you used all kinds of different sort of greens, but it works. I think this 99 inspiring ideas for your indoor garden might have benefited from a layer style, and if it was the only one that had a layer style, in this case, it would be fine because you don't have to have a layer style on everything, and this is the dominant text on this page. So I think it would work because what you're telling me is this is what's the most important article here. This is what's going to draw people into buying this magazine. And in the United States, it's one price, and Canada, it's another. So that was pretty clever of you. The lines of this white on white are not quite as defined as they could be, although it's there and it's not bad. So we can look at that a little bit better. It's pretty grainy, which means that this image was a slightly low resolution in relationship to what you actually needed to go here. But you got lucky in that it's not bad. And there's something about this plant that looks a little like an illustration as opposed to a photograph. But you do have a lot of grain in the image, especially here. And I believe that there are ways to have fixed that or smoothed it out just a little bit more. Otherwise, just be super aware, everybody, of making sure that the DPI of your original image will at least match the template that you're given or whatever document you're using. And I see you did turn it into a smart object, so clearly you did everything that you knew to do. And also the white in these corners, see how it kind of goes to gray? You could have brightened that up. unless you liked it. It's possible that you liked that because I can see how there's some sort of kind of gradient aspect, an idea of that going on. It's not bad. It's just obviously I'm just looking for every little thing that's going on here. And how you handled the type actually is quite interesting. So let's just turn that off. So there are two separate words, and I'm not sure where you got the type from or how you created that. So that's interesting in and of itself. So I don't know what to say about that, but you did use regular type on everything else, which is cool. And it is, let's see, I do have that selected, that layer. And if I go to the type tool, is that impact? Doesn't look like impact, not to me anyway. But I don't know. Did you use type? It doesn't actually look like you used type. Here you did for sure. Oh, I see. It's because it's Cooper Black and I don't have that loaded into my system and we're not going to worry about that right now. So anyway, I'm surprised how many of you use the white background, but you know what? It is very appealing and very clean and fresh. And I think you did a nice job with the balance. I might actually have made the word life a little bit larger, green life. It still works, but that's just my opinion. All right. So anyway, very cool. Next. Okay. IKEA. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be. Maybe you're trying not to be IKEA, even though this would be for people who like IKEA and modern furnishings or Swedish furnishings, etc. So anyway, I'm going to hide those template lines. Actually, you did a beautiful job of fitting everything in here. And this has really got a lot of interesting stuff, including, okay, let's start at the top. So my first thought, the first thing that happened was, yeah, I went right to the masthead. It's Savvy Living 2021, which in the way that that is put, it makes me think that that's a yearly catalog because it doesn't specify a date like a June 2021 or something like that. So it's just Savvy Living from this company that's putting out this magazine slash catalog. Take your living room to the next level with a modern design created by, and what that ends up looking, because of the underline, it ends up looking like it's a link. So if I'm looking at that online, my instinct, which is everybody's, when you see something underlined, that you're going to get a link. But because it's a magazine, it's not a link. Anyway, just something to think about. One of the things that I liked about what you did here was I liked that where it says best lighting collections, you created a bubble. You created a bubble on the top 10 furniture and the living room organizational tips. All of that works really well. And you could even have, within some place else, your barcode is well placed, etc. Modern living room designs. So that is our specific, you know, thrust for this particular magazine, right? Modern living room design. So we've got lighting, we've got organizational tips, and we've got furniture accessories. So that's all very modern living room designs, and I think that's very good. And it's a super nice picture that goes very well with this specific idea. It's got a lot of interesting things to look at. In fact, if you think about it, this image is kind of a busy image, and yet it doesn't really look busy. It just looks like a really beautifully designed room with the various accessories for design. And I think that the choice of color, which is very unique, and it's sort of a pistachio with a little yellow, more yellow in it, and it matches the modern living room designs text very nicely, and also goes with this, you've got all this plant life in there. So I think you have a lot of nice design ideas, including this white line that goes between the masthead and the image. It's well placed. It looks good. I think that was a very smart choice. Okay, Shogun stories. New stories about a samurai who became a ghost? Question mark. Are there new stories about a samurai who became a ghost? I'm not sure that you would want to put a question mark there. So this, it says your artwork. I'm not sure if you wanted that there or how you wanted that there. It has a blend mode on it, but it ends up looking kind of obviously, illustration like with this gray color. So I'm not sure that really works with the lighter color blend mode. So normal, it would just be gray. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of different options that we could put in here. So my guess is that it ended up getting saved with, like this one actually, the overlay works nicely because it sort of alters depending upon what's behind it, because that's what blend modes do. And it sort of works with the colorization of your entire thing. It's I know I'm sort of bouncing around a little bit, but your this, I'm trying to figure out what this is. So this is an image that you pulled in and you turned it into a smart object. or dragged it on, however you did that. And then you put a gradient in it and a slight drop shadow. And the slight drop shadow is just subtle enough to totally work. And the Shogun stories, you did the same thing with that, although you did it on text and then you added the gradient overlay and a drop shadow too. So technically, yeah, really great techniques. If this is news stories about a samurai who became a ghost, again, I probably wouldn't used a question mark, and I'm not, and that's kind of a long, it's a really long text block. I would probably think about if you wanted it to be that long because it ends up being so vertical. It's almost everything is on its own line and it doesn't make it quite as readable in that case. And then interview with the family of photos of from daily. So when you have this many teasers, and this is great, you had all the teasers you were supposed to have, they're not separated enough. So you would want to make sure that they're separated enough. I'm not sure if they're on one line or several lines or how you did this. So, okay, so it's in one line. So you would want to either put them on separate lines. You could play with the size of them a little bit. In fact, I think the one thing that's the biggest size, obviously, is this, I'm guessing, samurai, right, in this image, which is a really strange and ghostly image. So it totally goes along with this idea of Shogun stories. Um, anyway, I'm just talking about balance, right? And how things sort of move around in here. I like the idea of the white text. I just think that you need to separate your teaser stories from each other a little bit so it's more obvious. It just looks like one block of text. And by looking at it here, it is one block of text, but really you should separate your teasers in a way that's more obvious. And so that's my thoughts about that. But I think the picture is quite beautiful. And that's, there you go. We're just going to turn that off. We're going to discard that and not save and go on to the next one. Okay, so now we're at backyard chickens. And I just turned the templates on and off just to make sure everything fitting in there. And it's perfect. You guys are really nailing the template thing, so it's great. So we know when this is. It's a particular edition for June 2021. We've got the free egg diary. That's interesting. I have no idea what that would be, but it makes me curious. And backyard chickens. It's a great image. The backyard chickens really stands out nicely. We know that it's about chickens specifically and the backyard. And the way you arrange that so it fits right in there nicely is great. The layers here are interesting. So you added, I see what you did. Oh, that's cool what you did. Okay. So on that layer, in order to darken whatever it was that was there that was just way too bright and not really great looking, you added another layer with that shape and you did a great job of making it not so highlighted. I'm not sure about these edges. In fact, I'm not sure what it is at all, but I believed it, and that really matters. All right, so happy healthy layers, do it yourself coupes under $200 and choosing your best breed. This is a really solid example of how to separate your titles, your teasers, and make them look like that they're different topics. Even though they're slightly close together, they definitely are clear as separate topics. And here's 5 great egg recipes, understanding broodiness. So you put a lot of things in there, and you spoke the language of the backyard chicken people, right? So things that are very specific to people who have backyard chickens and things that would speak to them to make them interested in purchasing this magazine. I also like the very simple frame that you used and the fact that it matches very well with your chicken. So does the navy blue. This works really well, you know, with your headline, etc. So nice job on that. All right, so here we go. The fair square. Sorry. Okay, so let's look at the template. All right, so you're close on the template. You probably are a little bit outside of it on the bottom and the sides here. So you can tell it's fine on the right. So there's something, so it's slightly, I don't know if it's slightly off balance because one of these seems to be missing. It looks like about a quarter of an inch. So you might want to make sure that the fair square volume 3 fit even better into the strokes here, the guidelines. Okay, so we're just going to hide those now. Anyway, yeah, see, you use this artwork created by Cicely Mary Barker, and you had it really small under the barcode, so if people want to find that, they can. And it's got her signature on the artwork. It's beautiful artwork, and I think it really speaks to this topic. And I think that the text that you chose, this particular text, which I don't have, obviously, I'm not going to replace it, so I'm just going to cancel it. It's Bolivia Free Bold. Smart choice. Really smart choice. And the Fair Square, which has sort of a 20s feel, but this whole thing has a very sort of a very old retro feel. The image itself, this beautiful painting. So I think you did a great job with choosing your text and your font style on this. It's very interesting how you handle it. So Botox, and please forgive me, I do not know, and how to remove them, how to do the toadstool stomp. You were very clever in how you used your sizes and fit everything together, like almost like puzzle pieces, and how you put these teasers together. And this green that you chose to go along with the pink is somewhat inspired. So really nice job on this. You also did a nice job with your, you can go a little too far sometimes with layer styles, but I think you did it well and it's not too extreme. It has, I believe, just the right feel for the style of the illustration that you chose and how you put it all together. So I think it's a really lovely cover and it definitely does what it needs to do. All right. So next, I wish I knew how to pronounce this, but I don't. I'm going to guess it's Zolo, America's best-selling, don't even ask me to pronounce that one, magazine, and I bet it is. And one of the best things about this magazine is the simplicity of this cover. You took a totally minimalist approach to this, and it works. So, another thing that you did that was very unique and interesting here was the 10 secrets your dog wants you to know, and Skincare 101, best toys of 2021 so far, and how you uh, arranged the text. It was all flush left, but then you arranged it so that it actually followed the line of the dog and the back from the ears on down. So that was very, very cool. And then you have this little empty space here with exclusive Bro the Zolo. I'm saying Zolo. Hopefully I'm right, but I have no idea. One of the interesting things about this image, of course, are these hairs. And I'm kind of glad you didn't fix them. You know what? Because sometimes somebody would say, oh, I don't know, this doesn't look good. I'm going to go ahead and, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to clean these up. And, you certainly didn't need to do that. Okay, it's not. Apparently, I got off the dog layer when I was meaning to be on the dog. You didn't have to clean those up, and it really, actually, as a viewer, I thought it was kind of cool to see those still there because I really got the sense of this dog and this hairiness of him. And if he is a very specific breed, then you're speaking to the specific breed people who love this kind of dog. And there are a lot of people who love their breed and won't have anything else because I know a bunch of them. So I don't mind the barcode over the top of the dog here. I think it kind of makes sense actually. So your headline, your masthead of this magazine, and the drop shadow you used being this sort of a deeper gray is great. Right? So there's a lot of things to like about this, including the minimalism, because this image and this approach really said, yes, I need minimalism. And you gave it, and that was good. Cool. Bloomberg Business Week. Okay, well, Elon Musk is in the news these days all the time, isn't he? So it's almost like it's the Elon edition or something, but it's Bloomberg Business Week. How safe are cryptocurrencies? You know what? The background on this is cool, and I see all the different elements that you used, which is nice. Um, Dog or Doge coin, however people pronounce that, versus Bitcoin, which is interesting and yes, definitely related to Elon, so that works. And his tweet sends Dogecoin to the moon. Um, this is funny. And you know what's also funny? The picture that you used of the Elon Musk and the fact that it's cut off at the shoulders, which ordinarily I would never do. I would have it sitting on something or placed in a way so that doesn't distract. But I think the way you handled this with all your different images that are kind of stuck on there, it worked. I think that was actually a good choice and a fun choice and definitely works. The background is somewhat beautiful, the blockchain thing. So I can tell you put a lot of thought into the pieces that you were going to put into this, and it looks good. Also, I like the fact that you didn't use any layer styles on these images. I don't think they would have been as good with them. That's one of those times where that's what I think, and it totally works. So well done. Is everything here? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. This is one of those things where this particular, it's also like a puzzle, like all the different ways that you could put this thing together. And it's sort of a little bit, it's definitely balanced the way you have the Bloomberg Business Week on the top, and then you have Eli. So it has this sort of, hopefully you can see my mouse moving. It has a diagonal feel to it, and then we still get centered in the middle. And then everything that's in the middle is speaking to this one very specific topic based around this one specific guy. So I think it translates very well. Good job. Okay, so homemade treats. Got that sweet tooth? Need new recipe ideas? And top easy homemade recipes. Create the best of the best right in your own kitchen. Absolutely. All right, this is a very attractive cover at first glance, and one of the things that's especially attractive about it to me is that it's totally believable. Like, I think I could see this on a newsstand. Many of them I can, but this one in particular, partly because it really speaks to that foodie crowd and the people who are probably all about, the food, TV shows and recipes and cooking and competitions and stuff like that. So, I think you did a nice job. The circle that you created for this text to stand out, create the best of the best right in your own kitchen. Um, yeah, you did a good job. This is one of those cases also where it says got that sweet tooth, need new recipe ideas. I'm not sure if that's one topic or two topics. And also, I don't mind the question mark in this case because, yeah, maybe I do need new recipe ideas. And so this is inviting me in as a viewer looking on the newsstand to, do I want to get this magazine? Ooh, they've got new recipe ideas. I need some new ideas. Ooh, I like sweets. And the fact that this got that sweet tooth really relates to this main image is good, right? Everything else is just about recipes. So in homemade treats, of course, your headline, your masthead, speaks to the idea that magazine is probably focused on sweet things and desserts, etc. I think you might have chosen a different font for homemade treats. I don't like the fact that it's a little small. So this looks bolder. The Got That Sweet Tooth looks bolder than your actual masthead. So chances are I would rethink your masthead so that it is the masthead and the image are the two most important things on here. The rest of it is informational and helps to balance the graphic design of your image and also helps the reader know what they're going to find so that you're interesting them and encouraging them to buy the magazine because at the checkout there's money involved and that's really important, right? So think about your masthead and the fact that it has the most dynamic an important role on your magazine cover. So I would rethink this homemade treats font. Not that you're going to redo this. You don't need to redo this. Just keep that in mind for other design projects that you may come across. But again, it's still believable and very attractive. All right, so now we've got Boys, issue number 26. And I'm just going to hide those lines. Tyler, the Creator, Rap Album of the Year, Paris Fashion Week. Yeah, okay, issue number 26, which is pretty big. I'd say it's even too big. And I like this I don't know, I guess this masthead that you created. So you've got layer one, which is the circle, and then boys on here. I think that's nice. I like the fact that it's white, and I like your blue layer style, which isn't the same blue as this hat, but it still kind of matches it in a way. Your sun doesn't really match anything else on this cover, but I'm not sure that matters. That could, just let's pretend for a moment that that's the logo of this magazine. But the one thing that I would say is, again, in this case, I think this boys logo and masthead needs to be larger. Even though it does stand out pretty well, I still think it needs a little bit more size. But you know what? Here's the thing. When you're designing something and you put it together and you go, oh yeah, that looks right. I'm done. Good. Click, right? There's a click when you feel like it's done. And that may have occurred for you. And if it hadn't occurred for you, and let's pretend I was designing this, I would probably try several different things, which that's what we do. Do I like that? Does that look good to me? And we keep working until we feel that click, right? My first thought here is, yeah, that could be a little bit bigger. I think it could. But I'm not trying this. You did, and you made that decision. But that's my opinion that it still can support a slightly larger size. His head is really big, and he is so dominant here. I think issue 26 is too big, and it makes it so important. It's the fact that this is issue number 26 is not that important unless it's an anniversary issue, right? Unless there's something really unique, like issue number 25. We passed a quarter of a century of, publication or something. I don't know if it's a yearly thing, for example. Tyler the Creator, Rap Mail of the Year, Paris Fashion Week. I think those do stand out as three separate teasers, so that's good. You could even have had them slightly farther apart. But you know what? You did a nice job on this. I really think it's good. Again, we have another white background with white on top, and it's pretty nice how the white actually stands out. The edges of the white stand out pretty well here. He is slightly on the look. See all this? This is grain, right? So sometimes grain can sort of escalate into things that look like pixels. So, but you know what? It's a photograph, so we don't want to take it outside of the photograph realm. But that's just something to be aware of when you're designing things. You want to make sure that you have the right size of an image that is supported by a high resolution output, for example. And the more you do graphic design, the more you'll get that and learn how that works. So there are ways, especially in Camera Raw, which you're going to be covering this week, where you can minimize grain. And there are techniques in Photoshop too, where you can minimize grain a little bit. And so that might be something that we should look into a little bit more. If you want to learn more about that, let me know. In fact, as I'm looking at this image, I'm even seeing some areas here. So let's move this around a little bit. You can see that this is all this stuff in the background. This is pixelization and I guess what they call artifacts and stuff like that. So you want to be really careful about that. If this was actually printed, it would be actually viewable. Right here, it's a little different, with the resolution of my screen. So these are things to really be aware of seeing and then find ways to minimize that. And you could minimize that by selecting your background and putting a slight, like a blur on it, being careful not to overlap with the hat because you want it to be sharp. This is a tricky one. So there is no easy solution to this, but there are options to try and see if they help. But you definitely want to be aware of artifacts and pixelization and grain. And in this case, I'm not saying it looks bad. I'm just saying that I noticed it. Of course, I'm kind of looking for those sort of things, but just be aware of it in your own work for later on. Okay, next. Discover Magazine. Okay, Discover Weekly. Flying Lotus on composing Netflix's new show. I'm going to get Yazook. I'm not sure what that is, and I don't know everything that's there. And then you made a bar here where it says inside Mad Villain, Susumu Yokota, and so this was a unique and interesting way of handling the 3 teaser option. And I like it. I think it's really nice. It has a delicacy to it, but it's still very readable. The fact that you use those, the forward slashes is very cool. Looks good. These white lines, if you wanted them in, are not going to be in. They would be outside of the safe zone. Even your Discover masthead is outside of the safe zone, so you have to really watch that. And let's see, let me turn that back off. Okay, so be aware of that. He's interesting because some of him is in focus and some of him isn't. But you know what? It feels like such a highly stylized magazine. This could almost be a fashion magazine, the way that you've designed it. So I would think about that. Now, this thing, the Netflix's new show, Yasuke, if that's what it is, I like that. The problem is I had to like really lean in to read it and I wasn't even sure what it was. So you might have made that slightly bigger. But Flying Lotus on composing, Netflix's new show. Composing. When I heard the word composing, what I thought of was music. So is this somebody who is creating the music for the show? Are they actually composing music for the show? Or what is it they're composing? So that was a little bit unclear to me. And you got to make sure the masthead fits within the safe zone. You've also got a black line on top, which if it's outside the safe zone, I have to assume it's a mistake on your part. But I like the idea of that as part of a design, so I would probably try to make sure that it's within that safe zone of those lines. Again, here we are. So yeah, be hyper aware of those things. Again, you know, like other people, you've chosen sort of a very minimalistic approach. Also, you say it's Discover Weekly, but you have a monthly design idea here, July 2021. So July what? Week of what? So it's a mismatch information, right? So the information is not just the words, obviously. The first information is the viewable stuff, what we see and what we make it mean and how it speaks to us as a viewer interested in that particular kind of magazine. That really makes a difference. Like you're speaking to a specific group of people, right? Not everybody wants Discover magazine. Not everybody wants Zolo magazine. So you're speaking to specific groups in every case, practically. So you want to make sure that all these little details all add up. And what are we discovering? Are we discovering great TV? Are we discovering, places around the world? What are we discovering? So you want to think about what you're trying to tell the viewer so that they say, "Oh, that's for me. Oh, I need that. Oh, they're talking to me." Right? Oh, they like what I like. They're going to tell me about things I want to see and what I want to know, etc. So I would really think about that as well. I like the simplicity of the design, by the way. Okay, so here we go. Let me make that bigger so you guys can see it. All right, and everything fits beautifully into the zone, the safe zone. So let's look at that. So summer 21, archetypes quarterly. Okay. So it's actually summer 2021 sounds seasonal, but that's all right. What a dynamic and interesting image that you've used. I can't even imagine where you found this. It looks like you had a little problem over here on the left of this thing, which I would probably do my best to repair because every other part of it looks perfect. So I would probably fix all those little things. And they're fixable. I can see them and I can see where you might have had trouble with it, but they're definitely fixable. And so, okay, this is the original. I'm going to look at the original. Oh, that's interesting. So I don't, you masked it, obviously. So can I disable layer mask? Okay, so I'm just turning it off just so we can see the original. Oh, well, look at that. Look what you did. So you actually had to rebuild that thing. And if that's the case, then wow, you really did a great job with that. Although I could still see where it needs to be fixed. And you know what? If you were doing a magazine that was going out on the national newsstand, you would take the time to fix that. This is just a class thing, and I get that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, this is very, 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 very doable. But I give you tons of props for actually doing what you did here. Let's see, what is this layer? Oh, I see. That's from something else. Okay. So you got your three teasers here: Tarot, a beginner's guide, the Platonic solids as elemental archetypes, and Joseph Campbell, a retrospective. All right, this is obviously for people who are into that kind of stuff, and I think this image definitely speaks to them. Your blue is you've got a really nice gradient here. You used a gradient fill, and it's sort of a delicate change, so it's not extreme like some gradients might be, but it works. And you also used, I believe, colors from within this image, this very unique Mellotron cube that you used here. Archetypes quarterly. I like how you did the arc of it, and I don't know if you did this. Oh, you did actually use the T one that's on the type tool, which frankly, if you did a really good job with that because that tool gives you such wonky stuff. So clearly you worked very hard on that. I think down below in this sort of solid kind of shapeless, well, I was going to say textureless background. I think the layer style might have improved this just a tiny bit, but not necessarily. It would just be something that I would look at when you have a flat color like this with, in another flat color. But I like how you handled the text box, not text boxes, but the text in that you had your main topic was in the bold and your sort of secondary text on it was a retrospective as elemental archetypes, etc. So I think that was really, really well thought out. Excellent. Okay, so I'm not going to save that. There it is. Those are the reviews. Just, look at all the different options there are for moving things around. I mean, everybody had, the same requirements to create, which is a dynamic image, a masthead, 3 teasers, and look at the differences in what people chose and the kinds of magazines that they did. Anyway, I hope you got a lot out of that and seeing everybody else's work and hearing some of the comments and some of the ideas. I sure did. I think it was a wonderful selection. So thank you everybody for all of your hard work.